Hey guys, I'm your guest reader today. We're just going to finish up this chapter that Miss Shrewsbury has been going through, so I hope you enjoy it. Alright, let's get started. You are disgusting. Bring the recess bell. With a yelp, the boys were pushing for first place at the door. The boys will all sit down. Oh, Lord. While the girls line up to go out to the playground. Ladies first. The boys quivered on the edges of their seats, like moths fighting to be freed of cocoons. Would she ever let them go? All right, now if you boys. They didn't give her a chance to change her mind. They were halfway to the end of the field before she could finish her sentence. The first two out began dragging their toes to make the finish line. The ground was rutted from past rains, but had hardened in the late summer drought, so they had to give up on sneaker toes and draw the line with a stick. The fifth grade boys, bursting with new importance, ordered the fourth graders this way and that, while the smaller boys tried to include themselves without being conspicuous. How many of you guys are going to run? Gary Fulcher demanded. Me, everyone yelled. That's too many. No, first, second, or third graders, except maybe the Butcher cousins and Timmy Vaughn. The rest of you will just be in the way. Shoulders sagged, but the little boys backed away obediently. Okay, that leaves 26, 27, stand still, 28. You get 28, Greg. Fulcher asked Greg Williams, his shadow. Right, 28. Okay, now we'll have eliminations like always. Count off by fours. Then we'll run all the ones together, then the twos. We know. Everyone was impatient with Gary, who was trying for all the world to sound like this year's Wayne Pettis. Jess was a 4, which suited him well enough. He was impatient to run, but he really didn't mind having a chance to see how the others were doing since spring. Fulcher was a 1, of course, having started everything with himself. Jess grinned at Fulcher's back and stuck his hands into the pockets of his corduroys, wriggling his right forefinger through the hole. Gary won the first heat easily and had plenty of breath left to boss the organizing of the second. A few of the younger boys drifted off to play King of the Mountain on the slope between the upper and lower fields. Out of the corner of his eye, Jess saw someone coming down from the upper field. He turned his back and pretended to concentrate on Fulcher's high-pitched commands. Hi, Leslie Burke had come up beside him. He shifted slightly away. Aren't you running? Later. Maybe if he didn't look at her, she would go back to the upper field where she belonged. Gary told Earl Watson to bang the start. Jess watched. Nobody with much speed in that crowd. He kept his eyes on the shirt tails and bent backs. A fight broke out at the finish line between Jimmy Mitchell and Clyde Neal. Everyone rushed to see. Jess was aware that Leslie Burke stayed at his elbow, but he was careful not to look her way. Clyde, Jerry Fulcher made his declaration. It was Clyde. It was a tie, Fulcher, a fourth grader protested. I was standing right here. Clyde Neal. Jimmy Mitchell's jaw was set. I won, Fulcher. You couldn't even see from way back there. It was Deal, Gary ignored the protests. We're wasting time. All threes line up right now. Jimmy's fist went up. Ain't fair, Fulcher. Gary turned his back and headed for the starting line. I'll let 'em both run in the finals. What's it gonna hurt? Jess said loudly. Gary stopped walking and wheeled to face him. Fulcher glared first at Jess, then at Leslie Burke. Next thing, he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm, next thing you're gonna want to let some girl run. Jess's face went hot. Sure, he said recklessly. Why not? He turned deliberately towards Leslie. Want to run? He asked. Sure, she was grinning. Why not? You ain't scared to let a girl race you, are you, Fulcher? For a minute he thought Gary was going to sock him, and he stiffened. He mustn't let Fulcher suspect that he was scared of a little belt in the mouth. But instead, Gary broke into a trot and started bossing the threes into line for their heat. You can run with the fours, Leslie. He said it loudly enough to make sure Fulcher could hear him, and then concentrated on the runners. See, he told himself, you can stand up to a creep like Fulcher, no sweat. Bobby Miller won the threes easily. He was the best of the fourth graders, almost as fast as Fulcher. But not as good as me, Jess thought. He was beginning to get really excited now. There wasn't anybody in the forest who could give him much of a race. Still, it would be better to give Fulcher a scare by running well in that heat. Leslie lined up beside him on the right. He moved a tiny bit to the left, but she didn't seem to notice. At the bang, Jess shot forward. It felt good, even the rough ground against the bottom of his worn sneakers. He was pumping good. He could almost smell Gary Fulcher's surprise at his improvement. The crowd was noisier than they'd been during the other heats. Maybe they were all noticing. He wanted to look back and see where the others were, but he resisted the temptation. It would seem conceited to look back. He concentrated on the line ahead. It was nearing with every step. Oh, Miss Bessie, if you could see me now. He felt it before he saw it. Someone was moving up. He automatically pumped harder. Then the shape was there in his sideways motion, then suddenly pulling ahead. He forced himself now. His breath was choking him, and the sweat was in his eyes. But he saw the figure anyhow. The faded cutoffs crossed the line a full 3 feet ahead of him. Leslie turned to face him with a wide smile on her tanned face. He stumbled and without a word began half walking, half trotting over the starting line. This was the day he was going to be a champion, the best runner of the 4th and 5th grades, and he hadn't even won his heat. There was no cheering at either end of the field. The rest of the boys seemed as stunned as he. The teasing would come later, he felt sure, but at least for the moment, none of them were talking. Okay, Fulcher took over. He tried to appear very much in charge. Okay, you guys, you can line up for the finals. He walked over to Leslie. Okay, you had your fun. You can run up on the hopscotch now. But I won the heat, she said. Gary lowered his head like a bull. Girls aren't supposed to play on the lower field. Better get up there before one of the teachers see you. I want to run, she said quietly. You already did. What's the matter, Fulcher? All Jess's anger was bubbling out. He couldn't seem to stop the flow. What's the matter? Scared to race her? Fulcher's fist went up, but Jess walked away from it. Fulcher would have let her run now, he knew. And Fulcher did, angrily and grudgingly. She beat him. She came in first and turned her large, shining eyes on a bunch of dumb, sweating, mad faces. The bell rang. Jess started across the lower field, his hands still deep in his pockets. She caught up with him. He took his hands out and began to trot toward the hill. She'd got him into enough trouble. She speeded up and refused to be shaken off. Thanks, she said. Yeah, for what? He was thinking. You're the only kid in this whole darn school who's worth shooting. He wasn't sure. He thought her voice was quivering, but he wasn't going to start feeling sorry for her again. So shoot me, he said. On the bus that afternoon, he did something he had never thought he would do. He sat beside Maybelle. It was the only way he could make sure that he wouldn't have Leslie plunking herself down beside him. Lord, the girl had no notion of what you did and didn't do. He stared out the window, but he knew she had come and was sitting across the aisle from them. He heard her say, Jess, once, but the bus was noisy enough that he could just pretend he hadn't heard. When they came to a stop, he grabbed Maybelle's hand and dragged her off, conscious that Leslie was right behind them. But she didn't try to speak to him, nor did she follow them. She just took off running to the old Perkins place. He couldn't help turning to watch. She ran as though it was her nature. It reminded him of the flight of wild ducks in the autumn. So smooth. The word beautiful came to his mind, but he shook it away and hurried toward the house. Alright guys, that was chapter 3. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're having fun at home. Make sure you're getting your schoolwork done, but also make sure you get outside when it's nice. And I just hope that you're learning tons of new things during this time. Have a good day.